Let us talk about the living world and raise the question, which is the element that is found in the maximum abundance in this world and is the most prominent, which we will find everywhere in life? And the answer is carbon and its compounds. Carbon is the element which is so important that it makes millions of compounds in living beings, and actually life depends on it. So let us see what is so important about carbon, or what is its special property which gives it the capacity to create life or living beings. So let's explore that today. Here we see a rubber tire. So if we raise the question, where is it coming from, the material? We see that natural rubber comes from rubber trees, which is a living being, and therefore rubber will necessarily have carbon in it. So mostly if any material is sourced from living beings or life, then it will have carbon. So here we are seeing a little burnt paper and cloth, and the blackened sides are showing us presence of carbon. Similarly, when wood is heated to give wood charcoal, we see the black carbon left behind, lot of carbon compounds which create coal or charcoal. So what is special about carbon? It is a small atom having this arrangement: 2 electrons in the inside shell and 4 electrons in the outside shell. And we know that the outside shell, to be fully filled, requires 8 electrons, or its octet needs to be completed. So what can carbon do to complete its outer shell? It can borrow 4 electrons to create a negative ion, or it can give away its external electrons, 4 of them, to create a positive ion. But both these options are not easy. Borrowing 4 or giving away 4 is very difficult. I mean, giving 1 or 2 or 3 is possible, but 4 becomes very hard, and therefore carbon does not give or take, instead it shares. So here it is sharing its electrons with hydrogen. So hydrogen electrons can be seen with crosses and carbon with dots, and we see that carbon is sharing 4 electrons to create 4 bonds with hydrogens and makes CH4, which is the methane gas. So one pair of electrons is shared between carbon and hydrogen. So therefore hydrogen gets its requirement of 2 and carbon gets 8. And this thus creates hydrocarbons, which are compounds of only hydrogen and carbon. And a lot of them can be found in petroleum, natural gas and coal. They make very great fuels. And this is the first hydrocarbon, CH4, or the methane gas, which is present in our kitchen gas or natural gas also. So here the one stick is showing a pair of electrons, and we see carbon has 4 valencies, which means it has a capacity to share 4 electrons. So any carbon will try making 4 pairs or sharing 4 pairs. So here is CH4 we are showing with the help of clay and matchsticks. The head of the matchstick, which is black, can be treated as hydrogen. So this is a CH4 formation. But suppose the carbon's valency is satisfied here, but suppose we take out one matchstick from here, and instead of this, now carbon shares with somebody else. It has 3 hydrogens, it is sharing with 3 hydrogens, but the 4th valency is shared with another carbon. This is possible, and this is done. So carbon, this is C2H6, where one pair of electrons is shared between 2 carbons and rest are shared with hydrogen. So C2H6 is another formation, and similarly carbon and carbon can make a large number of shared links or shared bonds, and therefore a full chain is created. So this is a carbon chain which is very, very common in living bodies. So a carbon chain has a large number of carbons sharing or making a chain with each other along with hydrogens. So this property of carbon to make such long chains is called catenation, and we will see that it makes various kinds of chains. Here there is a branching chain, so one carbon has another carbon in a branch, but all carbons need to satisfy their 4 valencies, which means 4 pairs have to be shared, or 4 of its valencies have to be satisfied or completed. Carbon can even make rings by sharing in this manner. Here we can see that carbon-carbon shares are also there, but also every carbon is having hydrogen as well to complete its 4 valencies. So this is what we call as a bond. So there is a carbon-carbon bond. A carbon-carbon bond or any bond means a shared pair of electrons, which we are showing with a stick or a matchstick here. So this is, as we saw, firstly we can have single bonds between carbon and hydrogen, and this C2H6 is made with a single bond between carbon and carbon. But it's not necessary that only one pair of electrons is shared. We can even have 2 shared electrons between carbon and carbon, which creates a double bond. So here carbon and carbon are sharing 2 pairs of electrons, or 4 electrons are shared. So 2 of the carbon valencies are satisfied in this manner, and the remaining 2 are satisfied by pairing with hydrogen. So this makes C2H4, which is now a compound with a double bond. Similarly, a triple bond can be created. So carbon and carbon are sharing 3 electron pairs or 3 bonds, and the 4th valency is completed with hydrogen. So this is C2H2. So carbon can make compounds with single, double or triple bonds. Here is a ring with all single bonds, and we can also have, here we are showing how carbon and carbon are sharing a double bond, making a compound with double bonds, C2H4. So we can show more pairings with double or triple bonds. So here is a triple bond between carbon and 2 hydrogens are there. So this is C2H2. So similarly, we can have other variations, a lot of variations of carbon compounds with all types of bonds. So here is a ring with all single bonds, as we saw earlier, but we will also see a ring with double bonds. So here is a ring with double bonds. So the double bonds need to be properly kept. So between carbon and carbon, if you will notice, there are some single bonds and some double bonds. The only thing to take care of is that each carbon must be having its 4 valencies completed. Then only the compound will be made. So here is a ring with 3 double bonds and 3 single bonds, 2 single bonds, and other valencies are completed with hydrogen. So here is a ring with double bonds, all valencies complete. So it is important to understand that we are showing it flat on paper, but these compounds are actually 3-dimensional with different kind of shapes. We can see CH4 here, which is like a tetrahedron, which is like having 3 legs below and 1 on top. So they are not flat or in a line. They are arranged in 3 dimensions and create different shapes. So with that, we see that carbon makes a full universe of organic chemistry with a lot of bonds with other carbons.